Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Mishal Saeed, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have Amy Winner, the co-founder and managing partner of Wheels Up Collective, joining us. Amy is a marketing powerhouse with over 20 years of experience, from driving demand generation at Socrata to building scalable programs for B2B tech startups at Wheels Up. Her agency delivers senior level expertise to help brands soar, doubling sales pipelines for clients like HData and embracing AI to stay ahead. We'll explore her founding story, how Wheels Up fuels growth, and her vision for scaling this boutique agency. So, with that being said, let's dive in. Amy, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the chat.
Absolutely. So, on that note, let's kick things off for the listeners. Take us back to the beginning. What specific problem within the B2B marketing or the tech startup landscape, perhaps around costly in-house teams or ineffective campaigns, inspired you to start co-found Wheels Up Collective after, your success at Socrata?
Yeah, so I have decades of experience in startups and small companies that are growing quickly. And always the challenge there is you don't have the right people when you need them, and you don't have enough of the right people when you need them. And so I have worked with a lot of agencies and a lot of vendors. And one of the things that we kept struggling with was that either you worked with a mom and pop agency down the road that didn't have domain expertise or didn't have like deep enough marketing expertise, didn't have that enterprise motion as their DNA. So they were building small programs that just weren't super impactful. Or you had to work with the huge company, the huge agencies of the world that worked really slowly. There was tons of layers built into every project, and it just was expensive and things took forever to get done. And we needed someone that could come in and understand, okay, this is the problem that we have today. My hair is on fire because of this today, but tomorrow it could be totally different. And I need to know where the puck is going to go and build what we need today quickly on a budget, but also be able to scale tomorrow and iterate tomorrow. And if the direction changes, you don't have to start over. You have to be able to use some of what you have to be able to pivot and move in a new direction that a dynamic growing company is dealing with every day. So that's why we started. The other problem was just being able to afford really senior marketing expertise to build out an in-house team that had everything. It's such a double-edged sword. If you find someone who's junior and can do a little bit of everything, they're not great at anything. But if you go and find the super senior specialists, like they're so expensive and they have very narrow swim lanes. Being able to build out the capabilities that our teams needed it just wasn't reasonable or realistic to do in-house. Those were like the two pillars that we build Wheels Up on: getting the best people that we know in marketing together and being able to be scrappy and move quickly and build for each individual customer. That's what keeps us up at night.
Love that. I love the fact that there's almost like this personalization aspect to it, really not just templated, cookie cutter, generalizing sort of that scope of delivery, but really, like you said, tailoring it to your ideal customer profile. Now, I want to get into the nuts and bolts for our listeners and even some potential clients that might be tuning in. Walk us through how Wheels Up Collective generates revenue today. Talk to us about the core offerings, some of the digital campaigns, marketing ops. How do you structure what you do for some of the tech startups or even small enterprises you work with?
Yep. Yeah. We have a couple different models that have worked. One is we can come in and take over an entire segment of your marketing needs. So that can be like, we want you to run demand gen, and we are like turnkey, a little bit of onboarding, and we're off to the races. And so we can do that for demand gen. We can do that for content strategy. We can do that for web design or like web management, PR. We do a lot of PR engagements and stuff like that. Very narrowly focused. We work with the team that you have, but we own it from start to finish. That's one way. We can come in and just run a project. If you say, I want to rebuild this website, or I want to stand up HubSpot, or we can do that from start to finish. And it's like a tightly scoped project. But most of our clients fit into one of two buckets. They either fit into a traditional retainer, where there's a certain number of hours each month, and we spend a little bit of time at the beginning of each quarter looking at, okay, these are the sales goals. These are the challenges that we're hearing in the field. Maybe there's new competitive pressure. Maybe there's new products launching. And we map out, okay, this is what marketing is going to look like for the next quarter. And then we work together with a team that's in-house or on our own to then do the work that fills that bucket of hours. The other bucket that most of our clients, or a majority of our clients, are falling into, is this fractional CMO model, where I think that a lot of companies need that very senior C-level expertise, but don't want the long-term commitment or the expense of hiring a C-suite executive. And we're able to come in. We have 3 previous CMOs on staff who can come in and work in a limited capacity to really ask the big questions about growth in general, not just like, what's the marketing campaign, but like, how are we thinking about positioning? How are we thinking about the market landscape? How are we thinking about competitive pressures and how we fit into that competitive landscape? We have a lot of experience working with boards. So we have a lot of VC-backed companies or PE-backed companies that we're able to help bridge the gap between the in-house leadership team and then the board. And so that model is a part-time, in the weeds on the leadership team engagement. What makes us a little bit different from finding just somebody on LinkedIn who is looking for a fractional CMO role is we also have this turnkey delivery execution arm, or we've got the whole agency there. So once the fractional CMO and the leadership team decides the direction, we're able to plug in really quickly and get the work done too. That's been, I think, a trend that's actually happening across a lot of different functional areas of teams. I've heard CS is moving that way, sales is moving that way. I think dev has always had fractional CTOs, but it's interesting, maybe a sign of the times.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things with organizations that they miss out on. It's okay, how do we set the direction, like you said? How do we set the foundation in place first before we can even map out what's disruptive and where we're going essentially, rather than just directly going into, okay, we're going to hire an agency, we're going to find someone to fulfill, but how do they fulfill? If really that thought process and that a lot of that critical thinking is like missing to begin with. So I love that. Now, building on your thought leadership on LinkedIn and also some of the things you're doing right now, talk to us about how you're currently acquiring clients, which channels, whether it is digital marketing, word of mouth referrals, ads, like what's been the most effective for landing clients for services?
Yeah, I think that's like a double two for answer. Like one of them is getting the most clients and the most leads has come from a lot of thought leadership through LinkedIn, through podcasts, through that, getting your word, your brand, the wheel of brand out to a larger audience. But that hasn't been our best channel. Our best channel is word of mouth. Like those clients tend to churn just because we're not a perfect fit for them, or the expectations were a little off in the beginning. Like our long-term, really successful customers are the people who we know and who have come from referrals, which is something that is really tricky. I think a lot of businesses, that's their first most successful channel. We're lucky that we want to stay smallish. Like we're not trying to grow into a 500-person agency. With the people on our team and the word of mouth referrals that have come in, it's been a successful business development strategy for us. And I think that a lot of founders that I talk to skip that. Like they skip it right out of the gates and they want to jump to, I want to run ads. I want to be in all these different places at once. And it's really distracting. And I think that there's so much like authenticity that you can really leverage in those word of mouth and first connection customers, that they can give you really good feedback and you can really hone what you're good at and build on that. I think a lot of people skip that. They want to go to bigger, more leads. I don't know about you, but I get at least 20 emails a week, like with BDR organizations that want to come give me leads. No, and you just waste so much time chasing the wrong leads that I think that it's good to know what you're really good at and really focus on the channels that are going to bring you those kind of interactions and those kind of introductions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also about relationship building at the end of the day and expanding your community and really like how do we leverage a lot of our own source content to provide that value to begin with. And then it's almost like a very naturalistic way of bringing them through the process rather than someone coming in cold and then they see it and you're not sure. Yeah, but of course, in that sense, there are a lot of other ways that in itself has its own nurturing process. I'd love to learn now on your approach to sales. What does that really look like? What strategies have been the most effective in converting some of the referrals that do come in into actual long-term clients? And also, are you doing this on your own right now, or do you have a team in place involved in some of these conversations?
Yeah. So I keep like, whenever I think about business development, I go back to this conversation that I had with a friend and customer client where I've worked with he's a CTO. I've worked with him for at least 15 years. And now he has a shop where he's providing AI services for companies that don't have in-house AI dev teams. He's been doing this since way before AI was cool. He said to me, he's having trouble with business development. And he said, this other guy that we had worked with before, he said, I can't believe he didn't call me when he needed it for his company. He knows I do this. And I just can't believe that he didn't call me. And I said, when was the last time you talked to him? And he said, I don't know, 2 years ago. And I said, like, he forgot about you. Like that nurturing, like you just said it, that nurturing is so important, that it's not just finding the right client, but being there and being top of mind when they're ready to do whatever it is that you do. So that, I think it's giving people a lot of credit to think that they're going to remember a conversation that they had with you 2 years ago and have kept up with you, and on their own. You have to nurture it. I try to make sure I'm on social channels. I hate social media because I think it's so noisy, but I also have had people who said, I've read everything you've ever written on LinkedIn. Like, I've read everything you've written, and I haven't talked to them in years, but they're reading it and consuming it. So it's like your daily diet. You have to get it done. And the people who want to consume information that way are going to consume information that way. There are people who want to consume information via a coffee chat. And so I've got my list of prospects that I routinely go through once a quarter. I reach out, hey, how's it going? Can we talk for 15 minutes? I want to hear what you're up to. And those people are also people who I like, and I would like to work with because they're good personality fits. It's nice to stay in touch with people that way anyway, too. That's very manual. That's a heavy lift, right? To do that. We also have a lot of nurture campaigns that are running, and a newsletter that's running. We've got organic social, we've got ads with retargeting. We have the garden variety marketing stuff happening. I think that it really comes down to people want to consume information differently, and you have to be a little bit everywhere so that they can find you when they are ready to make that decision, when they do have a need that you can help with. As far as our team, we have 3 pretty senior strategists on the team who have pretty deep networks. So we're all working that angle. And then we've got a marketing, our head of operations also runs all of our in-house marketing. So she's running all of our ad campaigns and nurture campaigns and stuff like that. It's definitely I feel at times like we're the cobbler with no shoes because it ends up being like the lowest priority, and it shouldn't be. It's another shout out to other founders out there. I'm sure you feel the same thing. How do you prioritize it and make it happen? But some months we're good at it and some months we're less good at it.
Yeah, but it shows that relatedness, right? I know some of our listeners and like you said, founders that are tuning in, they're probably also thinking, yeah, we're also trying to find our footing right now. We're also trying to figure out, hey, what's going to work? So you might as well dabble in all the trades and then eventually become a master at it once that duplicity per se. Now, from what it sounds like, Wheels Up is gaining a ton of traction. If there was like a bottleneck that stood out to you, what would it be right now? Is it scaling more on the fulfillment side, competing with some of the bigger agencies right now? As you said it yourself, there's so much noise online. What's like your top focus to keep the momentum going into this year?
Yeah, I think there are 2 things. One of them I have control over, one of them I have less control over. I think that especially in the markets that we are in, a lot of them are venture backed or PE backed, and there's just budget becomes an issue when the economy gets a little squirrely. And I think there's a lot of nervousness right now. So again, that's just like keeping those relationships, figuring out how to scale down engagements so it's a little bit more palatable when people are a little bit more budget conscious. Figuring out, okay, what problem is keeping you up right now? Maybe you don't want to build out an entire marketing roadmap for the year, but I'm sure there are things that are slowing sales down or are slowing or hammering your conversion rates. Or so what are the things that are keeping the CEO up at night, and how can we plug in and help with those and do it in a very on-demand way that's flexible. The second thing is I think this is like something that's good about us, but also something that like kills me from a efficiency standpoint, is every one of our proposals is completely custom, and every one of our engagements is completely custom, and it doesn't need to be. Like, I'm constantly trying to figure out how can we speed up the proposal process. Those sales cycles are long. It takes a long time to build a really custom marketing engagement. We're not just flying in and saying, oh, turn us on this month for social media, or it's a little bit more comprehensive and complex than that. So figuring out, okay, how can we package things with the team so that it is a little bit more of a bite size for our customers? Because I think it's overwhelming. I think we've gotten away with it because they're people who we know and we get along with well, or we already have that trust. But I think that I need to figure out how to package stuff better for sure.
It all comes down to that scalability aspect at the end of the day, especially if you are trying to go on a higher level, like broaden the scope and really create sort of that predictability, right? So it's not just having to fit it all for that one ICP. And again, totally relatable to some of the listeners tuning in. Now, with everything you've accomplished, really like doubling down and launching a lot of thought leadership and like creating source content, what's top of mind? What's that vision for growing Wheels Up Collective over the next 6 to 12 months?
Whew, it's a long list actually, but I think that figuring out how to get a little more repeatable is really important. That's something that definitely keeps me up at night. And I think I'm constantly thinking about like, how do we build trust faster? How do we build trust faster with prospects
Mm,
and with customers and with influencers and like the thought leadership arena? Because I think that right now it used to be that attention was the number one commodity, the number one priority with your audience. And I think that like it actually has gotten ratcheted up a level where now it's trust. It's not just their attention, it's their trust. And so how can we be more transparent with reporting? How can we be more transparent with project management? How can we be more transparent with billing? Like things that continue to build that trust so that, you're always going to have bobbles in the road, right? And so bumps in the road. And I think when you have that trust, it just makes engagements, well, it hardens, to use a tech term, it hardens that engagement a little bit more. So I think that will give us some stability when the economy isn't great and when people are worried about things. But it's interesting to see like how content is shifting online and how thought leadership is shifting online. I think that the brands that are standing out are the ones that are trying to bring a little authenticity and empathy and credibility to their message. It's not enough to just have a viral video anymore. That's
yeah.
funny. No.
That's so interesting how you brought that up. I was just on with another guest yesterday, and we were talking more about the human centricity approach and why that's needed now, especially in a time like AI, where we're almost dismantling that the human element, the human touch. And that empathy is so needed, especially with market intelligence and branding at the end of the day. That's what speaks volumes and that's what creates that authenticity, like you said. Now, let's get a bit hypothetical here. I really love your passion for really aiming towards building trust and really creating measurable results at the end of the day. Like you said, setting the foundation first with the strategy and then moving forward with execution. If you had a genie in the room, you rubbed the lamp, and now you have all these unlimited resources, Amy, what would you implement immediately to accelerate Wheels Up's growth?
So when we started building the organization, like Elise, my co-founder, and I called like our favorite marketers that we had ever worked with, our favorite people that we'd ever worked with from a skills perspective, from an intelligence perspective, from a humor perspective. You have to laugh if you're going to be in marketing. I think there's a lot of like ups and downs. And that's how we amassed our team. We found like the people who we love to work with and we got the gang back together. And I would have 5 times as many of them. I
Yeah.
think that, like, you can never have enough smart people in the room with different perspectives. I am disappointed to see a lot of the DEI initiatives being shelved because I think that different perspectives, different life perspectives, different experience perspectives, like it just makes you smarter in the room. And so I would have more people for sure. And I would have more hours in the day, honestly. Like it comes down to prioritization and there just aren't enough hours in the day. So 2 easy things. Come on, Jeannie, let's get them.
Let's get some more time in the day and more perspectives for Amy. I love that. And honestly, it's mutual wealth building at the end of the day from like a knowledge-based perspective when, you and your, in essence, can also provide that value back to them, right? And it's all about getting out there, fostering those relationships, and LinkedIn being one of those more prominent channels like the way we are here today. Now, one more question before we hit the lightning round. How do you see the B2B marketing and the tech startup industry kind of evolving in the coming years, especially with your focus from what we know on AI and email regulations? How is Wheels Up positioning itself for that type of future?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to get a lot more creative. I just had a conversation with a friend and possibly a prospect that they have done everything that you do in marketing. They've done the cold email, they've done the LinkedIn campaigns, they've done the outreach, they've checked all the boxes and like they're getting zero traction. And she and I sat down and talked about, okay, how are we going to get scrappy and how are we going to leverage personal relationships because she has a lot of them to build a marketing plan that can scale a little bit that someone else can come in and help with because honestly if you're the person who's the bottleneck that doesn't get you very far. So I think that like marketing organizations are going to have to get a little bit creative, whereas I think that we have done a lot of leaning on automation and just like volume in the past. I think that that's not going to work as well going forward. I think the companies that are going to stand out are going to have to get a little bit more creative. And I think that it is going to come back to surprising prospects with authenticity and with humanity and with something that rises above the noise of the marketing that they're getting now. We love having our clients on podcasts and in speaking engagements and in the earned media, because I think it still does. It's one of the few channels that does still bring that authenticity and that personality through. People do business with people who they like.
Yeah.
Like that's what it comes down to. And I think everybody's a little squirrely about AI and all the tools that are getting blasted at them with a fire hose. I think you have to just really take a breath and prioritize and really think through those decisions before you tackle anything, whether it's a new tool or whether it's an ad campaign or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to what we were saying. It's like that disruptiveness, like personal storytelling and just being
Yeah.
fun and really authentic, right, to the audience. Because I think now there's almost like this hyper alertness when it comes to content. We're bombarded from all angles. Like you said, there's so much noise. What really does stand out, what really does speak more from like a human to human level, right? Rather than it just being more of like that recycled, replicated content. A lot of people using AI to do that to start with in the marketing space. Now, for the listeners, entrepreneurs, and founders that are looking to follow in your footsteps, one last question here. What's like the best piece of advice you've received about scaling a marketing agency, perhaps from your Puget Sound AMA days or from a mentor? What would you say to the listeners?
Yeah, I would say know exactly what your ideal customer profile is and what you're good at and stick to it, because especially when you're scaling and growing, it's so easy to grab whatever business you can get. And, those customers, those prospects take longer to close. Those projects are always harder to run. They're harder to drive success in. They churn anyway. Then you spend a ton of time trying to save it. Know what you're good at and walk away from business that is not what you're good at, or customers who you aren't a good fit with, prospects who you're not going to be a good fit with. That's so hard to do. That's so hard to do, to walk away from it. But I think in the long run, it lets you focus on what you are really good at, and it lets you really scale those things. And I think that's just for us, that's been a better path to success for sure.
Love that. Yeah, no, it goes back to what you were saying, the alignment at the end of the day. If you're really good at one bit, one niche and one vertical, master that and then move on to the next. And then leverage a lot of that social proof and a lot of just those use cases to get to that next client, whoever it may be, right? Because you're the master at it, you're a specialist, as you said earlier on as well. I love that. That wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Amy, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with us today. Really, from driving Socrata's demand gen to like co-founding Wheels Up, you're really empowering a lot of B2B tech startups with like scalable marketing. And really, that's what it's about. For listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find some more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we'll see you all in the next one.